a human experience. That must mean that we are living within the divine. Nothing outside us needs to change in order for us to be happy. Nothing outside us needs to change in order for us to be happy. Oh, yes. And we are here to walk each other home. Yes, indeed. And it is my pleasure to introduce this wonderful musician, Ranj, again. Thank you.
Lost my job yesterday. Bills are piled up unpaid. I broke down on Maple Street. The long walk home don't bother me, 'cause everything's okay here. The roof is leaking again. My dog's jumped over the fence. Neighbors banging on my door. They don't like me anymore. Have you seen my election? Library books overdue. And I see your smiling face, but all my problems wash away. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Lost my job yesterday. Think I'll sleep in all day. See you're dreaming peacefully. I touch your face and I can feel everything's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's okay.
I love that. Let it be, everything is okay. It is my pleasure to welcome our guest speaker today, Rev Savanna. She's such a joy. She's been in this business. She's been in this organization. She's been in this training for decades. Decades. For real. This young, lovely person has been doing this since she was 16 or something.
Still looks 16.
I know, yeah, absolutely. And a leader, a youth leader, went to Ukraine, led youth groups over there, has spoke all over the United States, Canada. Very, very gifted and well-grounded in principle. The principles of love, of good, of joy, all those wonderful things and teachings. Reverend Savanna is deeply grounded in this teaching, as I shared with you, sharing her wisdom, knowledge, and love through leading retreats, teaching, and speaking in communities all over. She lives in Seattle, Washington, and I'm delighted to welcome back the vibrant Reverend Savanna Noelle.
just before you start.
Oh.
Over here. Right there. Just do that. I won't ruin your camera.
No.
I'm gonna be able to see my notes. Oh, I knew that was gonna happen.
Is this cigarette?
Oh. I do that every time. Thank you so much.
It's so nice to have a man.
I can't move it?
Yeah, you can't move that one. You can step back from it a little bit, though. You don't need to be right in it.
I just need room.
Yeah, so you can step back from it.
Okay. Uh-oh, they're broken?
Yeah.
How many does it take to screw in the light bulb? How many religious scientists does it take to? I'll work with it, but, oh gosh. We don't have another stand, do we? No. Okay. Okay, we're Mickey Mouse in here.
Mara, can you put your laptop on your lap? Yeah.
Oh, well.
It's,
Okay. Oh, she has tape. This is gonna work.
Um,
No.
here you go. No, we're just gonna swap. Just take that. Thank you. All right.
So, you know today's talk is all about vulnerability, right? I think it's just folded if you want it. Yeah, I think it's folded.
We don't get worked up about perfections.
I know. Does it? Oh, yay. Well, I like that. We got it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Way to go, Ranj.
Thank you. All right, so let's just take that holy breath. In the silence there is peace. In the silence there is unspoken joy. In the silence there's release. In a world full of chaos and noise. And I pray for this precious moment when I hear my own name. And I pray in this precious moment I find my own peace. And so we take a breath, because the topic today is called vulnerability. And sometimes we need to take a breath. I don't sing very often, and it's a vulnerable act to get up and sing, as you know. It's a vulnerable act to get up on stage. It's a vulnerable act to be seen in all of your vulnerability. When I haven't warmed up my voice, when I'm not breathing deeply, and yet we still show up and do it anyway. So today is about vulnerability, and I'm going to do something today that I rarely do, which you already noticed. And I'm going to share some of my own personal stories in this talk, and my hope is that you glean some jewel and pearl of wisdom from my story and my stories, and most certainly your own. And of course I want to prove a point, so that's why I'm doing it, so I hope you'll allow me to indulge. I've been thinking about what it means to be truly authentic in the world. We live in a time of cancel culture, and people are so unsure what to trust. We don't know who to trust, what to believe in. A lot of people are hurting, a lot of people are in pain, a lot of people are unhappy. Mental health challenges are at an all-time high. And what I'm realizing is that our authenticity requires so much vulnerability. It's what Brené Brown talks about when she says it's the center of difficult emotion, but it's also the birthplace of every positive emotion in our lives of love and belonging and joy and empathy. And it's the willingness to show up and be seen with no guarantee of the outcome. You all familiar with this, I'm sure, right? We have nods. Yeah. Because being vulnerable, she says, is the quickest path to more joy and more belonging and more love, but it also means that we're going to stumble, we're going to fall, and we're going to get our asses kicked. And that is a spiritual word, by the way. A spiritual term. I find that I often want to make meaning of my life. We want to make meaning of our lives, and we learn as children that vulnerability is a risk. We get messages like, don't cry, don't speak up, your opinions are not welcome here, children are to be seen and not heard, don't express that, don't say that, don't dress like that, don't look like that, how could you wear that out of the house? You aren't safe to feel how you feel, you aren't safe to question. And so we go about our lives, you see, stonewalling and protecting ourselves, armoring up, people-pleasing, acquiescing, compromising, I mean, the list goes on, right? Over-functioning because we fear we're going to be hurt or abandoned or rejected, not approved of, we're afraid we're gonna be judged or betrayed. We fear loss and grief. And what I continue to learn, no matter my age, is that when we stay in the discomfort, what do you think happens? Transformation. When we stay in the vulnerability, when we speak from our hearts, healing happens and others heal. And it might take a moment to heal, or it might take lots of moments, a long time. But I'm finding that when we commit to ourselves with honesty and compassion, something miraculous happens, and we often don't actually see it until we're further down the road. Like, I had to go through that to get to this. And then I had to experience that, which was one of the worst experiences of my life, in order to feel the aliveness that I have now and to see how much I've grown. And to see that I was resilient and I overcame it. We speak the truth even when our voice shakes. We sing even when our voice quivers. Was that my best performance? No. But it doesn't matter because I showed up, right? You showed up here today, which is half of it. This, in and of itself, spiritual community is so for us, but it's also an act of vulnerability, of putting yourself out there to meet other people, to heal and to grow. I always say that people that come into this teaching, it's because it's not for the faint of heart. There's something that pulled you here, that you are seeking something greater, because the work we do, I believe here, it's profound. It moves us out of victim consciousness into owning our experience and taking responsibility, doesn't it? It's work. And so at the end of the day, even when our voice shakes, we still have ourselves. We have that divine spark that lives within us when we take a moment to breathe. There's a concept out there that Brené Brown talks about called wholehearted living. And she says that wholehearted living is when we are engaging our lives from a place of worthiness. It's cultivating courage and compassion and connection to know that I am enough. I am imperfect and I am vulnerable and sometimes I'm afraid, but I'm also brave and I'm worthy of love and belonging. What I love about our Science of Mind teaching symbol, which we don't talk about very often, I don't know if any of you remember what it looks like. Is there one around here? I don't think so, but so it's a circle with a V in the center, and there's 2 lines separated into 3 parts. What I love about our symbol is that it represents the wholeness and the unity of all life. And within that is everything seen and unseen. It is the formed and the unformed substance. It is what we call first cause or consciousness, conscious mind. It is where we plant our thoughts into the universal law of mind, all of these dense words, and we notice the manifestation of our thought into reality. It is the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual body, and it's important that we understand the use and the creative use of this process. It's not just that thoughts are things or thoughts create things, which I'll get to here in a moment, but it's understanding that within the wholeness of this whole thing, all of our emotional body lives, meaning darkness, meaning negative stuff, meaning the stuff we don't want to address, the heavier emotions. It's part of the wholeness and the greater unity of life, and I think that's what sets us apart from a lot of traditions who believe in scarcity and fear and lack and hell and damnation and all of that stuff. It's the understanding that it is all accepted and acceptable, and that we're always on a continuing, evolving journey to understanding our connection to the one life and that one power. Do you ever get tired of being around a victim? Do you ever get tired of being around somebody who complains all the time? There's a difference, I believe, in someone who's walking a hard path and they're expressing their learnings and what's going on and the things that they're having to tackle as a self-reflection because they see themselves in it, versus someone who everything is always happening to me. There's such an energetic difference, right? Brene Brown talks about the elements of a story. You know, earlier I said that we love to create meaning. And there are always 3 parts of a story. Like our DNA, it's in our DNA, storytelling. We want a beginning, a middle, and an end. And she says that the most important element of the story is transformation. And the research that she's done is primarily showing that the most resilient of leaders and people have these 3 things. They understand that story plays a significant role in our culture and our strategy, our narratives that we create and talk about. They also stay curious about their emotions, their thoughts, and their behaviors, and how those emotions, thoughts, and behaviors are connected to the people that they lead, and how those factors affect perception and relationships. And they have the ability to lean into discomfort and vulnerability. So if we're not actively looking at the stories that we're telling about ourselves and our unworthiness, and the meaning and the emotion that we have about them, then it really becomes difficult to live a wholehearted life. What do you suppose understanding those stories when we're in that rumbling will do for our lives? She says that we rumble with these stories that we've been told. I talked about them earlier. Things like, I'm not good enough, I'm never supported, I'm not seen, they don't appreciate me, I'm not smart enough, I can't do that, they make more money than me. All of these beliefs that we carry around, they are half-spoken truths or not based in any reality about something that may have happened. What I've been learning in my life, because what I find is yes, I've been in the teaching for 20-something years, believe it or not. For so long, it's been an intellectual process because our teaching is very heady. It's like moving it from here to here and actually seeing how it is transforming and how I am showing up and embodying myself in it. And so I can be told something, but actually doing it are 2 different things, right? We will always find evidence from people in our lives to reinforce the beliefs that we carry about ourselves. I'm going to say that one again. We will always find evidence from people in our lives to reinforce our deepest core wounds. We will always seek to validate the story that we are telling. Why? Because we want meaning, because we want to know. Which is why the work that we do in the unconscious, subconscious, bringing it to the conscious is so important, because it informs us what we're still holding on to, the stories and the narratives that we are telling about our unworthiness that do not serve us anymore. And so we operate from those narratives until we change the script. And what we must do then is, it's not just change your thinking, change your life. It's so much beyond that. It's looking for new evidence to prove the new story that you're telling is true. And that process is vulnerable. Why? Because it means we have to question the unfamiliar, or rather, the familiar, unhealthy past. We have to disrupt that old pattern, that old feeling, that old go-to, that old small child who didn't get their needs met. I have to say, after all these years, I definitely find it hard to change my thinking, change my life. Because I can say in the mirror over and over again, which I believe this, by the way, but I'm just giving you an analogy here. I can say, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, beautiful, over and over and over again. But if I feel that I am deeply unworthy and I am vibrating at that place, then I will continue to find evidence to prove that I am unworthy in every relationship that I have until I'm vibrating at a different space, which is why we talk about that we must become the vibrational match to the thing that we want. It's not just positive psychology. It's embodied living. It is practice. It is what David Hawkins talks about in his book. Are you guys familiar with Power versus Force years ago? Where it's not just our thoughts, it's our thoughts combined with the vibration, the energy, and the meaning that we make up about the thoughts. The reality then shifts as we change our mind. But our minds change through the repatterning of those habits, those beliefs, and then fact-checking those narratives. Is this really true about me? Choosing then to look for a different ending. And then vibrating at that ending. This is the reason why we talk about the power of visualization, the power of meditation. And for me to share quite vulnerably, it was always and has been this narrative of attracting unavailable people in my romantic relationships. Anyone familiar with this? I know I'm not alone. And it's been rooted in this story that they're going to leave, they're going to reject me, I'm not going to be chosen. And guess what? I've continued to find people throughout my life to prove to me over and over again that that story is true. They all leave, they all ghost, they all reject, they don't do their work, blah, 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 because I find evidence to prove it's true. When I know deeply that below that is this story that I picked up probably as a very, very small child, with a father who was never present, where love was modeled as, I'll give you a few scraps here and there, but my work is my priority, you are not. And so love to me started to look like unavailable. It's familiar. It doesn't mean it's right, it's just familiar. And so for years I've worked on, soothing that inner child, working with my inner child, letting her know that that was the best he could do and it was not great. but also knowing as an adult now that I am worthy of those things. And believe me, my gosh, it's been such a process. It doesn't make it adaptive, but it's familiar. So this is why it's so important that we fact check those narratives that we're telling ourselves. The old tape can't define us anymore. That old story cannot be true. And so we have to find new evidence. So what I've been experimenting with is the minute I want to go to that story, looking for evidence to prove otherwise. Ernest Holmes talks about this when he says, the mind is a magnet, and we attract that with which we identify the self. In order to get the most out of life, we must learn consciously to change many of our habitual thought patterns. This is not easy, for our old thought patterns cling to us with great tenacity. But being thought patterns, they can be reversed. If you are filled with fear, refill yourself with faith, for faith always overcomes fear. So what are your limiting beliefs that you hold about you? What are the stories that you tend to go to that hold you hostage, that keep you a victim, that keep you in judgment or confusion or toxic patterns or toxic relationships? Brené Brown says that the most dangerous stories we tell are the ones that undermine our worthiness and they threaten us feeling whole. She has this notion, and I've talked about it here before, about face down in the arena moments. Any of you remember that? A face down in the arena, like you're literally like fell on your face. She says that this is any moment when we have risked showing up and being seen. We have risked being awkward and goofy at a new exercise class, maybe leading a new team at work. A tough parenting moment is a face down in the arena moment. Being in love is definitely in the arena. Taking care of a parent who is transitioning, a health challenge, starting a new job. These are all face down in the arena moments. And she said it is how we get back up and fact check the narratives that is the essential path to our healing. Interesting thing about this is I'm in that place right now. I just manifested a new job. So when I'm not speaking and teaching and ministering, I am now ministering, part of an organization called Girl Reimagined, and I'm a mindset coach for teenage girls. Yeah, it's really exciting. Because mental health is so essential right now, especially for teenage girls. And what's really interesting is I was looking through the curriculum for this 12-week program that we take them through. Because this is not my body of work, but I'm curious to know, how does it align with what we're about? And one of the modules is all about beliefs. I was stunned when I opened up the video, and these are the questions that the girls have to ask themselves in the process. What are 5 negative beliefs that I have about myself? And they write them down. The next question is, what am I making this mean? Meaning, what am I making this mean? And the third question is, what else could be true? I'm like, this is what we teach, right? It's Byron Katie's work, and they're learning it at 14. Okay, so the story I made up that we are breaking up. They say in ministerial school, and Tamara can vouch for this, that we should never share anything from the pulpit if we haven't healed it. Or, I would say, if we haven't gotten to the other side of it, for the most part, because we don't want to bleed all over, our congregation. But I'm not bleeding, so here's the thing. Get into a relationship, great connection, all the boxes are checked, we have a little turbulence, great potential, lots of great things are unfolding, there's lots of care. Then we start to have some unforeseen challenges and external stressors, needs not met, we both reevaluate, both people still in it, both eager to make it work, then more struggle and things not aligning and the timing not right. What do you think my story was? Anyone?
No, you were trying to give him the most.
I almost heard it. Say it out louder.
Here we go again?
Here we go again. What else?
He's gonna leave me.
He's gonna leave me. What else? I'm not good enough. Anyone else?
You were giving it all.
I was giving it all. Well, my story was, it's over. He's gonna end it. Factual evidence? None. Behavioral evidence? None. Explicit evidence? None. But all along the way, what is the story that's operating? He's gonna leave. He's gonna reject me. It's gonna happen. It always does. So what do you think that puts in my vibration? Every relationship I'm in, right? So what must I do? Find new evidence. Find new evidence of the story that I want to tell, that I want to be true. You see, we know that relationships are mirrors. They show us all of our unhealed stuff, and this one has shown it in a big way, the deepest core wound that I have. Is it about him? No, it really isn't. Because the one relationship that we have in everything is the one we have with ourselves and the divine that lives within us. I know this, and I say it over and over to myself and to you. What am I making this mean because X happened? I have a fifth agreement, and I've told you all what it is before. Do you remember? Okay, let's go through it. First one, be impeccable with your word. Second one, don't make assumptions. I'm talking about the 4 agreements. You're familiar, right? Don Miguel Ruiz. Third one, always do your best. There's one more.
Not to take it personally.
Don't take anything personally. And I have a fifth agreement, and that one is stop making shit up.
That's like a self.
It's a really good one. It's the same thing we're talking about today. You see, when my brain went to that, it was familiar. It was the old tape running. It was the, well, this always happens, so it must be true. This text proves it. This action proves it. This story I made up about it proves it. And guess what? Conversation happens. I speak from a very, very vulnerable place. My voice shakes. I tell the truth. I'm scared. I'm coming face to face with my worst fear, that it's over. And yet I speak from love, from the highest place that I can. And guess what? Relationship not over. Theory, hypothesis, debunked. How powerful are we? I say to myself, well, now what? I don't know how to operate in this new territory. What do I do now? This isn't familiar anymore. It's even more terrifying like space to be in. Because what if everything I actually want is truly mine? The timing might not still be right. But that story, it held less weight. I had the conversation and it was like, oh, this release happened. So this is how we heal. This is how we create new familiar. And it's messy, and it's dark, and it's chaotic, and it's lonely, and sometimes for some, it's the dark night of the soul, but actually, it's perfect. It's unknown, and it's uncertain, and actually, it's perfect. It's anxiety-filled, and I don't want to go through it, but actually, it's perfect. So I want you to ask yourselves, what is the old tape and the story that is running your life? What is the ongoing theme? It doesn't matter how much work we've done. It doesn't matter how old we are. We all have something. Unless you're like sitting on the mountaintop fully enlightened. How does it serve me to believe that story about me? What is the actual story that I want to own? That is vulnerable. Because when we come back to the truth, with the capital T truth, to me, that's wholehearted living. When we ask ourselves, what is the real story here? It is taking back our power. It is coming back to the capital REAL. And the real story is, and I want you to just take this in, you can close your eyes or not, is that you are worthy of love and belonging. Nothing is wrong with you. You are perfect. You are the perfect person for the job. You exude so much confidence. You are not at fault. You are resilient and strong. You are lovable and you are safe and you are a miracle. You are an expression of infinite intelligence and beauty. You have the wisdom within you to know what to do next. You know how to let go. You know how to choose wiser and healthier, and you have your shit together. And we take it in for a moment. As your own, because I know I'm speaking to myself, but I'm also speaking to you. There's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita that says, detachment is not that you own nothing. Detachment is that nothing owns you. One of our colleagues and a beloved teacher of mine for, the last 20 years, who traveled to Ukraine with me many, many years ago was Dr. Reverend Barbara Waterhouse out of North Carolina with her husband, Dr. John Waterhouse, who used to be the president of Centers for Spiritual Living years ago. Dear, dear friends of mine, she passed away this week. And I wanted to quote her because I love her so much. And I wrote this in my notes on my iPhone in case I ever forget where to put my focus. She says, if you want to be your best self consistently, simply develop the practice of paying attention to what you're paying attention to. Your life begins and ends with your thought. It's worth your attention. So if you struggle with being vulnerable, which I think many of us do sometimes, my first question to you would be, what is the cost in not being the fullest expression of you? Flaws and all. What is the cost? What do you lose? What is the cost of shutting down, closing off, not speaking the truth? Is there a new way that you could show up? Because usually it's the heart-centered way. It is the cost of you living a wholehearted life or not. It is experiencing the deep richness of joy and love and authenticity. But to get there, we have to have the courage to see ourselves and to love and forgive ourselves in the process. Let us go into a prayer now. So just breathing deeply in. Taking in all of the energy of this morning. Reminding ourselves that we are connected to that highest place within us that is pure love intelligence. It is the wisdom, the beauty, the love, the greatest power that will ever be, which is love itself, that is infusing itself in, through, and as each and every one of us this day, right here, right now. We are connected to it at all times. It never, ever leaves us. And so from it is from this powerful place that I speak my word, knowing that we are where we need to be, right here and now, that we release all fears, judgments, doubts, scarcity thinking, in whatever the experience is that is happening in our present moment. I know that trust and faith and inner guidance leads the way. I know that the path is being made for each and every one of us, whatever challenges we may face this day. I know that we recognize the truest, most purest essence of who we are, which is worthy and whole and belongs. And so when we forget, we tap into that remembering of who and whose we are. I bless this amazing community. I bless its expansion and all of the people that make this happen every single week. I give thanks for the hearts and the vulnerability and the ways in which we all show up here today in our most authentic way, especially when it's scary. And I know that we are abundantly blessed by one another. And so we just go out into our lives, claiming our wholeness, our worthiness, our ability to create the life we truly want. So with this affirmation in mind, I know it is done, it is so. So together let us say Ashe, Namaste. And so it is, amen. Thank you, everybody.
Means for me and how rich it's been through Savannah's words, that beautiful gift that she's passed to each of us, Ranj's beautiful music, and each and every one of your energy and coming together in community, the richness, the beauty of being together and sharing this beautiful love and beauty and good that each and every one of us are. So I give thanks for this.